G'day, Wildkard. My name is Wildkard. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for watching my content and giving me the absolute pleasure and privilege to talk about the greatest sport in the history of the world, rugby. This game was so unbelievably good. I thought this was the Rugby World Cup final, okay? This was absolutely insane. The team threw the kitchen sink and the pipes, alright, from underneath the sink at each other. This was so crazy. The four-pack battles was insane. The backlines was fast, were clinical, and the kicking game was just sublime. It was absolute. There was stuff, there were like strategies on the field. I was just blown away how good, how clean these executions were. Both teams were able to execute their part of the game plan so perfectly at times. I thought that I was like, oh, yeah, France is unbeatable. That looked unbeatable. And then next minute, the Springboks does something. I'm like, oh my god, that looks unbeatable. How can you beat that? This is just absolutely a clinic of a game. And on top of that, believe it or not, there was 2 red cards. Yes, how can we get through a game of rugby without referee controversies? And this just adds to the drama of the game. And so if you're a Springbok fan, you probably like turned off the TV 12 minutes into the game when Peter Seb du Toit charges into a ruck, head to head, basically headbutts Jonathan Dante, who should have been penalized for being on the wrong side of the ruck. But yeah, very reckless play, red card. He looked like he was like gonna cry when he got red carded. And I thought this was gonna be. I honestly thought the Springboks that was it. I thought that was it. I stayed tuned. I was hoping to see something good, and I saw something incredible. Okay, so the Springboks was able to come back. Not just hang on, but come back from a red card in the 12th minute all the way to get to a point where in the second half they were hanging on to the game, and then in the second half Anton Dupont kills Cheslin Kobe. I thought Cheslin Kobe died. Okay, I thought I witnessed the first death in the rugby field, okay? Cheslin Kobe gets taken out of the air. He landed on his neck. He folded like I don't know. He literally folded like this, right? Upside down on his neck. I thought he's dead. And luckily he was fine. He got up. He looked very similar to that Bowden Barrett high ball where Curly Arinsa ran into him. But it's pretty much identical place on the field as well. But Cheslin Kobe was in the air. Anton Dupont ran underneath him, took him out. Man, that was brutal. So France gets a red card early in the second half as well. And then it was game on, right? Springbok was hanging tight. I don't even know what to say. Let me just focus on my notes so I don't just start rambling, okay? So the Springboks was down 13 points following that red card, and was able to claw themselves back in fact, they were able to take the lead in the second half after the red card was issued to France, and I thought the Springboks was gonna surely win it before France start pulling away again. Okay, let's just talk about the teams before I start rambling. So there was a lot of interesting stuff out of the Springboks this game as well. I feel like Rassie Erasmus actually like revealed his this has to be like a trial for his Rugby World Cup strategy, because there are some plays in the Springboks team I've never seen before. Like the kicking game was so clinical, and just like I've never seen the Springboks kicking game. The decision to kick was like not like just before where it's just like let's just kick it and see what happens. It was like very targeted, very mindful, very like strategic. Every kick was very strategic. There was a bit of kicking for the Springboks, but it was very strategic, and the chases were on point. Again and again and again, the Springboks were able to recover some of their own kicks due to their really good chase from Kobe and Curly Arinsa, right? And not only that, there was some kicking that I've never seen before. Villaroo was slotting into center position and he was crossfield kicking the ball to his wingers, Yeah, I've never seen this before. Just little dab kick behind, little crossfield kicks, very short kicks, 5 meters, 10 meters max. Just almost like a pass, like a kick pass. And they were happy to do this just about anywhere on the field. So this wasn't even like a thing where they're close to the try line or anything. They were doing this outside of their own 22, around the 50, everywhere. So that's something I've never seen before. And despite that sounds a bit risky, it was extremely clinically executed. Like they were able to. There was one time where Makazula Mapimpi almost caught one, and you could have just ran straight through and free, but it was just failed to catch that a little bit. So I've never seen that from the Springboks before. So the kicking game was just drastically improved. Also, the goal kicking. Last week, the Springboks didn't have a single goal kicker, right? This week, everybody is a world-class goal kicker. So they had Cheslin Kobe doing the kick at the beginning. I thought, and he was just slotting them in 40 meters out from the sideline, just slotting them in. And I was like, wow, wow, he's so good. And then Cheslin Kobe gets killed by Dupont. And then Damien Valenza takes over the kicking. And it was just again, he was just slotting the... Oh, no, sorry. Faf de Klerk takes over the kicking. And again, Faf was slotting this from right from the sideline. And he slotted one really far, 40 meters out. And I was like, wow, Faf de Klerk is a world-class kicker. And the next minute, Faf de Klerk gets stopped off. And then Damien Valenza takes over the kicking. And he slots one from 40 meters out from the sideline. I was like, wow, Damien Valenza is a world-class kicker. And then it's just over the last week, all these guys went to Razzie's kicking school, and then suddenly they're all world-class kickers. It was so weird how nobody was able to land a goal last week and everybody was landing 100% this week, right? It was insane how quickly these players improved in over 6 days. It was just unbelievable performance by the Springboks in that regard. In terms of the 4 battles, this was again just an absolute arm wrestle. The Springboks started off extremely good, despite having Peterson Dutoit in the bin. Red carded. The Springboks still had scrum and line-out dominance. They were able to more try. Just the scrummaging as well, just constantly. There was very few scrummaging in this game, but the Springboks still had scrummaging going forward against the French team, despite having a player missing in the first half. But in the second half, the situation completely reverses. So when France was behind, they start taking control with the scrummaging and the lineouts. In fact, the lineout moves from the French team was so good in the second half. The Springboks had to literally throw away penalties illegally to collapse the maul to stop the maul from going out of hand. And in fact, there was one point. There was just before the end, Dion Fury had to give away the penalty to tackle the ball carrier illegally in the maul to stop a try. I thought that should have been a penalty try, to be really frank with you. I thought just getting a yellow card was was a bit of a let out for the Springboks. That was that should have been a penalty try, because Eben Isbeth went in to sideways to illegally went in sideways illegally, and then Dion Fury just blatantly grabs the ball carrier and sacks him. So that was just before the try line. That should have been a penalty try. So yeah, Springboks got away with that, but still had a yellow card. Maybe Bunzi don't really know the rules that well, but nevertheless, this was insane. How good the French maul was in the second half. It was just complete reversal of how the two teams. The Springbok maul suddenly didn't look that good anymore in the second half. I don't know. Surprisingly, when Kitshoff and Vincent Koch came on, the maul looked worse. Yeah, go figure. Despite the fact that they were fresh and they were supposed to be the bomb squad, the better players, yeah, they actually looked worse when they got onto the field. So that was a really interesting thing as well. So with the French, with their attack, there was a really clear idea that they want to utilize it with as well. So the French was really able to find a lot of space out wide. But in the center field, the Springboks defense was just the rush defense was way too good for the French to break. But yeah, when the French were able to spread the ball out wide, they did manage to make some really nice line breaks and even finding a try out wide as well. Springboks did score some tries as well, also with some good handling. But overall, this was just, neck game. And, let's go through some stats, I guess, and let's check out what actually happened. So, this is some really interesting stats here as well. So, despite the fact that the Springboks had a red card and had to play with a 14 player for the first half of the game, and despite the fact that the Springboks was behind for most of the first half, Springboks actually had more run meters than France for the first 40 minutes. For the first 40 minutes by a lot as well. So believe it or not, and I'm not sure if this is correct. It says here at halftime the Springboks already ran 309 meters, and the French ran 175 meters. So I know that just before halftime, before like the official, like there was like on the 30-minute mark, the broadcaster did talk about the Springboks ran like 200 meters already. So I'm pretty sure this is correct because they already did like 200 meters before halftime, like 30-minute mark. The broadcaster reported that during the game. So I have no doubt this is right. So as you can see here at full time, the Springboks ran 450 meters to the French 274. So the Springboks completely outran the French. Something that we don't see very often because Springboks, we know, is more of a kicking game, more of a set piece kind of style. The running game was actually better, believe it or not. Turnovers conceded for the Springboks, 12 to France 8. So turnovers was a little bit of an issue for the Springboks. The breakdowns was so heavily contested by both teams. It was just like almost like a 50-50 every time the ball goes down. You just don't know which way the referees are going to go, which way the ball's going to pop out. It was just absolutely a huge battle with the four pack from start to finish. The tackle count, 95 tackles for France, 14 missed tackles, 89 tackles by the Springboks, 13 missed tackles. Despite it's interesting how both teams did less than 100 tackles for this game. This is, again, it literally felt like there was like 200 tackles being made for both teams. But both teams made less than 100 tackles. At halftime, the French made 63 tackles and they missed 12 already. So the French only missed 2 tackles in the second half. The Springboks made 48 tackles at halftime and 7 missed tackles. So kind of even for both halves for the Springboks. Now the kicking game, dead even at 23. At halftime, the French made 17 kicks, the Springboks 12. So overall, the kicking game was pretty well tight managed for both teams. And the high ball contest, I thought was pretty close, but I did think that the Springboks had a tiny bit of advantage with the high ball, with some of the the kicking is a little bit more clinical for the Springboks there in that regards. Lineouts, both teams had some lineout issues. The French lost 1. Springboks lost 3 lineouts. They lost 3 in the first half, in fact. So the French was able to, the Springboks was able to steal 1 in the second half against the French. It did look like the Springboks, especially at the start, like the first maybe 10-15 minutes when the red card occurred, the Springboks still looked really rusty. Like the lineouts were just awful, and the passes were not Kellenitz had. Maybe the nerves were getting the teams a little bit. So a lot of these errors kind of happened really, really early for the Springboks, maybe due to nerves. But once the game settled in fact, after the red card was given, the Springboks actually starting to play more controlled and a better pattern. So penalty count pretty low for both teams, 12 for France, 11 for the Springboks, 1 red card for both teams, and a yellow card in the end for against the Springboks, and that probably eventually, I think, that was eventually cost the Springboks the game. A little bit unfortunate, but that was, I thought the Springboks were lucky to not get a penalty try straight off the bat of that. So let's have a look at some of the key moments of the game. There was some just crazy stuff happen in this game. So, like I mentioned before, right from the start, France get themselves in a position where they get a really early penalty against Faf de Klerk. They kicked 3 points 2 minutes into the game and get themselves on the board. The Springboks was able to recover the kickoff, and it looked like the Springboks could get themselves, to return the 3 points that they just missed out. But there was a lot of handling errors early in the game, clearly looking like Like there was a little rust going on, or maybe a bit of nerves going on in the Springboks team. A lot of pressure coming in this game. 7 minutes into the game, we saw this thing that I was talking about. Crossfield kick from Willie LaRue to Jesse Krill. Jesse Krill recovered it on the win, but he was just a little bit tight on space, not able to push the ball back in the field before he was taken out. So we saw this a number of times this game. It's clearly something that's new that Rasmus wanted to try out for the Rugby World Cup. I did feel like the breakdown was also a little bit slow for the Springboks in the first half, especially when Faf was on the field. The speed clearly was too slow. The breakdowns in the second half, Faf did speed up a little bit, but still wasn't fast. Like compared to Cobus Reiner, who was later on onto the field, Cobus was clearly a lot faster at the breakdown, and it was for the Springboks. So interesting, a bit interesting there. Something to take note. But despite the slower breakdown, the Springboks actually scored more points with a slower breakdown than a faster breakdown. They couldn't score any points. In fact, I think with Cobus Reinhardt was on the field. So maybe there was one. Maybe there was a pound. Yeah. They actually look more dangerous with a slower breakdown for some reason. And then following this, Springbok lost the line out at 9-minute mark. The breakdown was a bit of an issue. So on the 11th minute, the red card occurred. Pieter-Steph du Toit and a bunch of players charged into a ruck. Jonathan Dante was on the wrong side, gets slammed in the headbutt, and Pieter-Steph du Toit gets sent off. He looked like he was crying on the sideline. Completely understandable. This was just a mistake, I think. So after this, I was wondering how the Springboks going to win this one. On the 14th minute, Springboks has their first maul in the game. And it clearly looked like the Springboks maul was still a weapon to be reckoned with. And France was not able to deal with it. But again, Springboks was still struggling with the line-out throws. So they were not able to capitalize with their maul. 16 minutes into the game, France gets another opportunity inside the Springbok half for an offside. They kick another 6 points to nil. 22 minutes into the game, there was a line-out. Basically, the French just had a damn penalty to do like a nice little loop behind, and he just carved open this little gap in the in like the 12-13 channel, and then he just linked up with just nice hands to his backs and found a lot of space out wide for the French. They got really close to the South African try line, and the French just crash ball, pick and go, and Cyril Bale, the prop, eventually crashes through, dunks the ball in for the first try of the French, 20 minutes in. And suddenly the French is up 13 points to nil. This was looking quite dire for the Springboks. They need to put themselves together, and it was looking like it could be potentially a blowout. But the Springboks is world champions for a reason. 23rd minute, the Springboks goes to a penalty, and they set up for a maul. And then they immediately gets a penalty for the maul. This was like just inside the France 40 and like really close to the sideline. And then they opt to kick the 3 points. I was surprised. I thought they would just go for a try, like kick the ball out for a 5 meter liner, because I didn't think that the Springboks had a reliable kicker on the field. But Cheslin Kobe takes the kick quite confidently. Like I said, this was like almost 40 meters out, and it was like close to the sideline. And he just pops this one straight through. He curves this one straight through. Kerwin Bosch style, right? Is this an end? Kerwin Bosch, and just kicks it straight through. 13 points to 3. Suddenly the Springboks comes himself back. On the 29th minute, there was a penalty for offside. The Springboks kicks the ball out for a 10-meter line out. They set up a maul. This maul was just like it was the Springboks just like going forward, and then the French had to like collapse it illegally, and there was just a mess. Everybody's everywhere. Nobody knows where the ball is. Sia Khaleesi did this tricky thing where he had the ball, right? Instead of just going straight for the sideline, he did like a 180 spin. So nobody could see him, like in the opposition could see the ball that he was carrying because he had his back turned, and he kind of just like ducked and just ran straight through a gap after he peeled off, because the referee was also giving a penalty, so nobody was everybody was like looking around, trying to see where the ball is, and just that spin around for Khaleesi worked like a charm, like a magic trick. It runs in untouched for a try. Suddenly the Springboks are within 29 minutes, 13 points to 10. And then on the 35th minute, Springboks gets a huge scrum penalty. What is it? Gets a huge penalty, scrum penalty, which helped the Springboks alleviate some pressure. On the 38th minute, just before halftime, Springboks made a massive mistake. There was a bit of a kicking game going on back and forward, and the Springboks gets the ball. They decided they're under a little bit of pressure. Instead of kicking it, they decided to run the ball out of their own 22 with no one supporting them. So Damien Dialende runs near the sideline and gets pushed out. And then France gets an opportunity for 35-meter line out inside the Springbok half. Immediately after line out, the Springboks gets penalized for not rolling away, and France pops 3 points just before halftime, 16 points to 10. Second half starts 2 minutes into the second half. Springboks gets himself in the front foot, gets himself in the position for inside the French 22, gets a penalty. They take the 3. And Barnsley at this point was telling everyone stop yelling at him, and he's like, everybody wants to be a commentator, which was a little bit funny. So Springboks gets on the board first in the second half, 16 points to 13. France fights back immediately. They get a penalty. They go for a more, and the more gets pulled down illegally by the Springboks because it looked like the French more was really, really well packed as well. France goes for 3, returns the favor, 19 points to 13. So on the 47th minute, so 7 minutes in the second half, there was a bit of kicking going on. There was a high ball crossfield kick into the corner, kind of sort of thing, inside the French 22. And Cheslin Kobe runs up. Anton Dupont comes in to contest. Anton Dupont takes out Kobe in the air. Looks like Kobe could have died. But yeah, red card. That's just what it is. The Springboks decides to go for 5-meter line out. France illegally collapses the ball going from side. Springboks goes for another line out. There was another penalty for another penalty from the line out, and then the Springboks go for a third line out. So this was a really smart thing the Springboks did. When they went for the third line out after 2 penalties, they put on the new props. So they put on Kitsov and Vincent Koch. And despite the new props, I thought this was just going to be an easy more and try time. Despite the fresh leg, the Springboks more actually got stopped. So the Springboks had to resort to crashing the ball. Just center field, 2 big crash balls, center field. And then they immediately take the ball out and switch to the blind side. And they had Curly Arinsa sitting on the blind side, the 5-meter channel. And then he was up against basically a prop, runs straight through, reach out, dunks in for the try. This was really smart. It was against Jellock actually. And then it was a really smart play by the Springboks, knowing that it's going to be all forwards in the short side defending there. They just put Arinsa there. It was a huge mismatch, easy try for the Springboks. And suddenly, Springboks is down by 1. Faf de Klerk, 19 points to 18. Faf de Klerk has to kick this goal from the sideline. I was like, come on, man. Because Cheslin Kobe is off. Cheslin Kobe was slotting them quite easily. And Faf just popped this one through. Straight down the middle, perfect kicking technique. I was like, wow. Suddenly the Springboks up by 1 point, 20 points to 19. So the 54th minute into the game, the Springboks breakdown starting to look a lot faster now. This is noticeably faster. And then they get another penalty. 40 meters out, Faf de Klerk pops this one through again. Just perfectly dead center, 40-meter kick. Suddenly the Springboks, 23 points to 19. And then after this kick was done, Faf de Klerk gets subbed off. I think just a few minutes later. But anyway, on the 56th minute, Damien Willemse shanks a clearance kick from outside his own half, allowing the France to have a line out 50 meters out, basically inside the South African 22, because Willemse shanked like a clearance kick. So the French set up for a line out. They go for a more, gets a penalty right away for collapsing. The Springboks literally was just going back, running backwards, getting destroyed going backwards. They had illegally sacked them all, and the French was happy to take the 3, and I think the Springboks was happy that the French took the 3. So 22 points to 23. France was 1 point behind. Yeah, so Faf gets taken off after this, and I was like, who's gonna do the goal kicking? Hello? You just talk about like another, like, what? So I was like baffled by the decision. And sure enough, what do you call it? Yeah, sure enough, there was a few minutes later, on the 62 minutes into the game, the Springboks were kind of like attacking, and then basically France gets a turnover. They try to counter attack, and then what's his name? Fiku? Is that his name? Fiku? Oh no, Makalo, who was on the field as a winger, he just runs through the sideline, makes a nice break. He got to about a halfway point before Curly Allen tackles him, and it looked like he wasn't held. But so he gets up and starts running again, and the referee says penalty, double movement. Yeah, so everybody saw this and everyone's booing Barnsley, but this was probably the wrong decision. But regardless, this was again 40 minutes out, penalty, and a bit of an angle as well. Demi Valenza decides to take a 3, and he slots this one from 40 meters out on an angle. And suddenly the Springboks up 26-22. And I was like, what happened to the world-class kickers you got last week? So yeah, that was just bizarre. Everybody's a world-class kicker now suddenly. So 2 minutes later, 64 minutes on the clock. Mapimpi was on the field. There was another cross-field kick, very similar to the one where LaRue did to Jesse Creel earlier. Almost got Mapimpi almost caught this one on the full. If he had done so, that could have been like a 60-meter run try. This was, yeah, very, very, very close there. So essentially after this one, on the 68th minute, Springboks gets penalized for not rolling away. France goes for a more. Again, the Springboks was not able to defend this one. It was horrendous. The ball was just getting completely. The Springboks defense was completely getting destroyed. The French ball was just like pummeling forward, right? Ibn Espen's runs in from the side. Referee says penalty, and the ball is still going forward. And Dion Fury had to illegally tackle the ball carrier and gets himself yellow carded. I thought this was a penalty try because I'm pretty sure if a yellow card is involved in this sort of situation, this should have been a penalty try. But Barnsley says no penalty try. So the French kicks the ball out for another 5-meter line out. They overthrow the line out. Yeah, let out of the jail for Springboks. But like a minute later, the Springboks gets penalized for not rolling away. So France gets another chance to kick the ball out for a 5-meter line out. I thought for sure they're going to go for another maul, especially with like another, with a forward missing. But no, the French decided to not go for the maul. They get the ball and just pop the ball out. They had a Moefana in the center field crash to the ball. And he got really close, but I thought for sure this was going to be a try. I thought this was a strategic mistake. But nevertheless, the French just, picked and go. And Faletea looked like he was tackled short. Jesse Creel looked like stopped him short. He just wiggled himself forward for a try. I thought that was a double movement. And then after this try was given, Ramos was about to take the kick. Barnsley stops him and asks the referee to check the try, TMO. And apparently they cut his microphone or something, so no one can hear what the Barnsley was just like, show me some replays, and no replays was shown. So maybe this was a double movement, but apparently after like 5 minutes, he got someone passed the message to him that the try was okay. So yeah, we never got to see the replay for this double movement that potentially happened. But that was really really bizarre. Like, why they're not showing the try when there's like this massive break. I don't know. That was just really bizarre. And then anyway, so Ramos misses the kick. So the Springboks is still only down by 27 points to 26. So the Springboks still has an opportunity to win the game. Any penalty inside the French half could secure the game for the Springboks. So 76 minutes, the Springboks are trying to run the ball out of their own half, just around the 40-meter mark. gets called for a forward pass. Again, no replay. And then there was the scrum. Springboks obviously down two forwards. Down two forwards. Demi Dialendi had to run in to be a flanker. Still wasn't enough. The French scrum just dominated the Springbok scrum. Gets a penalty. And Ramos pops this one through. 30 points to 26. And that's the end of that. Yeah. So that was a really bizarre moment with the try. I have to go back and watch the replay. Because my initial thought was that it was a double movement. And the fact that the Barnsley asked for a replay and it was never shown. And then like the TMO, like the referee mic was cut. I thought that was really sus. So I'm gonna go have a look at this. Let me know your thoughts if something like sus happened. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. See you guys tomorrow for the All Blacks game. Cheers.